Okay, you can start.
Okay, sir. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mr. Peter.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. My name is Peter Kings Monday. Today we'll be talking on risk assessment in information technology. And we'll be looking at the introduction from this section, introduction to information risk assessment, the method of preparations. We'll look at understanding the risk. We also assess this same risk. Then we'll write reports on risk assessment and make conclusions. If you have time, we'll take questions. And if we don't have time, at the course of the class, you can just drop your questions on the chat box and we will reply any available questions. Thank you. Okay, first the introduction. Introduction to risk assessment. What is risk assessment? What is risk itself? Risk is essentially the likelihood of something happening. That's basically what risk is. The likelihood of something occurring. Then what do you do about the assessment? You assess why this thing is going to happen, or why is this thing trying to happen? What are the careful examinations that could cause harm, that you want to detect that will harm your assessment? Or why do you actually want to do risk assessment? Something could actually harm your information, your data, or whatever you have, your business partner, that you don't want anything to affect that. As a result of maybe your carelessness or something else, you run into problems. So you really want to take risk assessment to assess the state of things in your organization. Then we have hazard. I used to say hazard is harm, anything that can cause harm to you. And that is why you do assessment to ensure that nothing causes harm or nothing warrants the harm in your organization. So that's basically what we're going to be looking at today. First, what can cause harm in your organization, which is hazard? How do you examine that process and stop it from happening? Most of us should know, or we are aware of the fact that there are hackers out there. There are so many hackers in the world. There are malwares and a problem, like the Trojan, for example. For some of us that uses Windows, if you come across the Trojan virus, you're sure you can't do anything about it. The only way out is to format. So imagine in that situation where you have a very sensitive data or information in your system, and then your system is hit with a Trojan virus, and then you cannot do anything about it. There's nobody that will tell me that, okay, or that okay, once it's Trojan, you can maybe format or clean, and then it will go. It will not go if it's Trojan, for example. So what do you do? That's why you do assessment from hazard, a hazardous situation like Trojan, for example, or from a hacker, or from theft, internet fraud, or cyber criminals. Why do you do? So you need to keep your system up to date and then to assess some of this problem. Then we have levels of risk. We have levels of risk. First, we have the minimum risk. Basically, I tell people the minimum risk is our daily expectations. Like you enter the car, there's a risk if your car has an accident. You take a bike, there's a risk involved. So getting home safely doesn't mean there was no risk. There's a risk that your daily expectation, you can come across this risk without issue. You are sure that, okay, there's a risk, but the risk that poses no serious danger until it happens to us. There's no serious harm to our data or information when we're at the minimum risk. This is the level every organization wants to operate. As an individual, as a business personnel, this is the level you want to be, at the minimum level where you will not have problem. The organization will not have problem. It's called the minimum risk. Then we have another level of risk, which is the low risk. We say within control. The low risk, there's a risk, but it's very low. This risk actually sometimes doesn't have effects on our data, even though we realize that there's a risk involved. Every business has its own risk. We used to say every business has its own risk, but you're trying your possible best to ensure that the risk is at the minimum or at the low level. So when it's at the low level, you are recognizing the fact that there's a risk, but that risk is something, it's not anything to write home about. It's something you can actually let go. It's if you want to invest into something, you want to invest into stock, for example, you're having 200 million naira with you and you want to invest, and then the person said, okay, all I need you to invest is 5,000 or 1,000 from your 200 million. It's still risky because you don't know the outcome of your investment. You could lose and you could actually gain. But what we are saying is, with that 1,000 naira, it's not too much to let go from your 200 million. So that's a level again. You want your organization to also operate within this thing. You are still very okay. You can still operate here as an organization, as an individual, your system, whatever information you have. You can still operate within these two risks: the minimum risk, the low risk. They are there, but they pose no threat of any sort to our organization or business or data. Then we have the medium risk. From my slide, you will see a picture. The risk at the medium stage is changing to a kind of orange color. Between the orange is not yellow yet, which is basically warning, is orange, gradually turning towards the yellow color, which is this warning stage. So here we say attention is needed. At this medium stage, it's a moderate level of risk. There's risk also, but at the moderate stage. So that risk is at the moderate stage that is either it goes towards you positive or negative now. The risk can be positive or the risk can be negative. So when it's turning towards a high stage, it becomes, you can see from the chart, we have the minimum risk, which is on the green stage, and then the maximum risk, which is at the danger stage, red. Now, the risk from the moderate stage here, if it's turning towards the minimum level, that means whatever you invested or whatever you are doing in your organization, you're getting towards the low level risk, you are still okay. But when you're going towards the maximum risk, you need to be careful and you start getting attention to a warning like, please watch out what you're doing. So here at this stage, it's like the pointer telling you, look, at this stage, you're already somewhere. You could go higher or you will go lower. So it's called the moderate risk or the limited risk stage, where only information is given, your attention is given that, look, what you're about to do is 50-50 kind of. You could lose and you could gain. At this stage, you need to take serious attention by looking at what you want to do at the medium risk. So which is the biggest stage in every organization. You always want to stand at this point, a point where you can decide what to do. Am I investing? Am I losing? Is my system okay? Can I let go of this information or can I hold on to what I have? Would I involve other staff to help me checkmate this error, or no, I need to keep it to myself for more safety? This is a stage where you make your decision. So that's why we call it the needed attention stage. Then we have the high risk. You can see it's already going towards a high stage. When the risk is at this stage, we call it the danger zone. Trust me, it's beyond gambling anymore. When you're at the danger zone, you know that the only thing that you can do is get out of whatever you're doing. We say failure is involved, harm is involved, injury. There's a lot of injury. If you're driving and then you are at the high speed, you can have an accident, injuries are involved. If you are too fast or again in your driving or whatever you're doing, it can harm you. Then if you're in an organization, when you're taking high risk, seriously, failure can be involved. It could lead to failure. So that's why we say failure is involved. It could harm or it can cause an injury. So we call it the danger zone. No organization wants to be at this stage. And it is not advisable that your business or information or data gets to this stage. Then we have the maximum risk. This is the maximum risk. You can see it. It's a dead zone. We call it the dead zone stage, where serious injuries and serious situations. At this stage, everything is beyond your control. Can you hear me? Can you all hear me?
You are doing well.
Hello.
You are doing well. You are doing well.
Okay, thank you. So at this stage, at the maximum stage, we call it the dead zone, because at this stage, everything is above your control. You are no longer in charge of this. You are no longer in charge at this stage. Already your organization will lose whatever it is you have or you're possessing. Your organization will lose at the maximum stage. Not just the organization, if you're investing at the maximum risk stage, of course, you are definitely going to, you are likely going to lose. You might not gain. Excuse me, my system is okay. Thank you. So at the maximum stage, can you still see my slide? Can you guys still see my screen? Hello?
Yeah.
Am I still visible?
That's it.
Eh?
Yeah, you are. You are. You are.
Okay. All right. So thank you. So at the maximum stage, your organization can even lead to closure, your business closure. If your system is at the maximum risk stage, you can lose anything you have. Trust me, you cannot recover anything. Probably your data, your information, whatever you think you have, if you don't have backup at the maximum stage, you're off. So that's why you need to be careful when you're investing, when you're doing something, and in an organization, who are you giving your information to, so that you not get to this maximum level of risk. Because at this level, it's called the dead zone. Everything stops, everything can die, everything dies here. Died in the sense that, or dead in the sense that you are no longer in control. You can't salvage the situation, except if you have backup, for example. Just like I once said with the Trojan antivirus, is a maximum risk antivirus. You're already taking, and that's why you don't allow so many flash or what have you. For some of us using Windows into your system, you wouldn't want everybody to bring their flash and just slot into your system, because you are sure when you contact Trojan, it goes into your drive C, it goes into your command prompt. That's where it operates from. So whatever antivirus you're putting, you're actually putting it on the window. You're not putting it on the command prompt. So at that stage, you're on the maximum risk. You just be praying, when will your system come? The only way out is format your system. You format, you clear everything and start afresh. So the same thing happens to your business. If you are the maximum risk, you need to start afresh, because you are definitely going to lose. I have not seen, I think 99% of business or activities done at the maximum stage is always on the lost side. So that's why we say when you're at this stage, you're already on your own. Then what is risk itself? Because we've been talking about the level of risk. So what is this risk? Risk is actually the combination of what? Vulnerability, threat, and the impact they pose on our organization. When your system is exposed or there's weakness in your system, when there are a lot of threats, perceived dangers based on whatever your vulnerabilities now, hackers, maybe your system, your Wi-Fi is opened, you're not secured, insecure, and then probably you don't even have antivirus in your system, for example. All these could pose threats into your organization. Then what impact do they have? They will definitely have an impact. When you're vulnerable, when there's threat in your organization, it poses a very big impact in the organization. So the combination of vulnerability, threat, and impact is what we actually call risk. So wherever you are, whatever you are doing, when you are vulnerable to that thing, then you are at risk. Whatever you are involved in, when there's a threat in it that you're not safe, that endangers that thing you're doing or your life, is risk. Because at the end of the day, they pose a serious impact on us. So this is the combination. That's why we say risk is a combination of vulnerability, threat, and impact. Now, we'll now look at some of them. How do you prepare this? Preparing for risk, which is the preparation now. How do you prepare for this? First, to be sure that you're off these challenges, you need to identify and prioritize assets. You don't want to start a business and then your serious customers You wouldn't want to just keep their details for everybody to see. You need to take serious. You need to what? You need to take them seriously. You prioritize them. This is your asset. You can't have 10 million right now, keep 10 million in your house, and then don't lock your door. And then everybody knows you are rich, you have that money. Of course, you are going to be exposed. A lot will happen. The same way to your server. This is the gateway to your organization. Where in the world of the technology, everything is internet based. So you're using server. How do you prioritize your server? How important is your server? Are you still your organization that is looking for free Wi-Fi or cheap antivirus or free domain or free server, everything free because you don't want to pay? So the signal you are getting to do your organization business is from the free server or something that is free. Your database, everything. If you don't prioritize this, you will run at loss. So your preparation to have a standard is one of them. To have a standard organization and of taking serious risk is one. You need to identify and prioritize your assets. Examples include your server, sensitive partners that you know that can invest a lot of money and other things into your business. You wouldn't just want to let them go. Then your contact information. Everything about your organization is exposed, can be seen on the internet, or for everybody has an access to it. It's no longer secured. It's just like you're saying, okay, you didn't lock your door, and then you traveled and you leave your house open for everybody, and you still believe that when you come back, everything will be intact. It's only take God's grace. I'm not saying it's not possible, but take God's grace. So you need to take what? Identify and take very serious priority on your assets, which include your server, your partners, and your information. Then another thing you need to do is identify threats in preparing your organization to be standard. You need to identify threats. Remember, I said threat is one of the things that comes as a result of what? Vulnerability. So now, one of them is natural disaster. What do you do? This one is beyond our control when there are natural disasters. Then we have hardware failure. Then we have malicious behavior. Examples I also say include what? Interference. Your system will start misbehaving if I bring a flash now that is not treated. I just put in your system. If you have not updated your system or do backup on your hardware, you're just using it, you play game, you're putting unnecessary files there. Your hardware or anything, you just dump whatever it is, can fail. And then malicious behavior is just like impersonation. If I know you have a data that is very good, and because you are not secure, your program or anything is not secure, just like I said, I could actually find a way to what? Impersonate and gain access to your information. So you need to identify some of these threats and then solve them in order to stay off. Then another thing is, if you look at most times, you can see a picture of interference there. I was trying to show a picture of interference. So probably you are on the blue stage from my left hand. You will see something like a fan, which is in the probably you are this blue stage. That is a secure stage of your organization. But because there are interferers, there are hackers who can dictate some things, you can see now they give you the red stage. So they make your system to misbehave. That's malicious behavior. You now start having two feedback. One is your original, one is the copied version. You can say a picture of a man with a mask. Now that's impersonation, trying to what? Impersonate and then be what is not, because your system is loose and prone to a lot of these things. Then hardware. Then how do you understand this risk? After you have done all these things, yes, you have known the levels of risk. You have actually prepared your organization to have a standard this is risk-free, or you have prepared yourself for a risk-free organization or business. How do you understand the next thing to do? At this stage, the next thing you do is what? You can actually do vulnerability identification. You analyze, you do risk assessment. Then probably your engineers and what will give you a recommendation. One of them is seriously doing an audit report. Is it on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, or on a monthly basis? How do you checkmate or do audit report on your organization? Some people don't even do anything. They just come on your system, start typing, sending information. I said it in one of my presentations, the last presentation, and I said, whether we like it or not, there's no harm when you change your email email password after every 6 months or 3 months. There's no harm when you change your email password. After every 2 weeks or 1 month, there's no harm if you do backup. Just do backup of your sensitive data after 1 month. And luckily now we have Google Drive and whatever. Why not just save some information that you have gathered within a month, save it to your Google Drive and then back it up. There's no harm. But because we don't do that, so there's no report, there's no audit, we don't know when the last time we checked something. So even when we have error, or even when we start noticing error at the minimum stage, but because we don't audit, we don't report, we don't analyze, we don't do anything, we will not know until it gets to our database. And then it start affecting our business, then we start having problems. But if we do maybe a weekly or monthly checkup, and then take reports of our organization and information, we actually discover that, okay, at this stage, the admin had problems sometimes last week. And this was what was done to resolve it, or it wasn't resolved. So we're still waiting for process. So we now stop other things from coming close to it. So that's all about this. Then we go straight towards analyzing control. Who are the people in charge of your organization? Who are the people in charge of this, your risk, your business? Who are the people? Are you taking control from where you are? Have you analyzed them? What are they doing? Okay, yes, you say, are you taking inventory? Are you doing backup? They say yes. The question is you are supposed to ask, or you're asking yourself, are these people trustworthy? Are they in charge? Are they actually taking control of this, or they are just talking to you? For example, who encrypted your last data? Who authenticated it? Who did you give it to? All this is very important when you're analyzing this. And then we're writing a report. Everything you have done, you have analyzed, you've done this, you've done that. What are the things? Reporting and reviewing and monitoring is very important. Just like I say, we need to keep a daily update or a monthly check of our information. So you need to keep reviewing and monitoring the organization. Then we say capital planning and customized research. We need to keep doing research to get updates, latest updates and informations on what we are, actually the data or information we are taking. Most of us use free Microsoft. There are Microsoft that are more secure than the normal free version. So we need to have information. Compliance assurance is one of the things we need to do. Then risk control review. We need to get organizations that are in charge of what? Risk control review. Then finally, to come to conclusion, I say to conduct a risk assessment, you need to identify the elements of the risk equation, and then use your knowledge of those elements to determine risk. For example, you need to keep taking inventory on your organization information assets. Just like we said, those assets that are important to you, you need to take inventory on them on a weekly or daily basis. They understand the potential threats to each asset. We've talked about it earlier. This information, what is this threat? Is it secure? Is it not secure? You can't have you can't be dealing with a financial firm. You can't have a financial firm and you're looking for a free Wi-Fi to run your firm. And you might run into problem. Detailing the vulnerability that could allow those threats to damage your assets. Then assessing the associated cost. Sometimes when we just think about money, oh, money, I'm not paying for this. If you don't have the free version, just leave it. We don't want to pay money. Sometimes when you pay, what you pay for, you value it more than when it comes for you free of charge. And so once you collect this data, you've collected all this data, the next step is to create a risk management plan that details both the risk and the strategy for mitigating them. I believe with this, you'll gain a little insight in risk assessment, how to secure your information or assets from external body or threats or intruders. So if there are questions, please let them come now. If you have any question, please, you can ask. If you don't have questions, I will ask my own question. Thank you. Hello. Hello.
Hi, we can hear you.
Do we have any question, please?
Hello, Mr. Peter. Good morning.
Sir?
Good morning. Good morning. I had to clarify something. when you said prepare for example, somebody has a hard drive and they have not prepared it, you just took in your system. Like, what do you mean by prepare or treat? I think you said treat or prepare.
Come again, please.
I said when you mentioned that hard drive should be treated or prepared before you can allow it to enter your system. Like, I was kind of asking what you meant by, like, how do you treat or prepare the hard drive before the flash drive before it enters your system?
Okay, basically what I'm trying to say here is not to prepare because of hardware failure. What I'm trying to say is we can have hardware failure or hard drive failure. So what do is you go for antivirus, you're prepared, you get antivirus that are very strong, you pay for a safe antivirus, then before you take any, you make sure that you have the antivirus that is strong and good. Then when a flash is coming to your system, do you have time to scan it? Do you check this flash before you just slot it into your hard drive? Because sometimes our problem is not that we don't even have some of these things, but we don't have time. We are not prepared to take care of. We just slot it because of time. Everybody's against time. Every organization is always time conscious. Whatever we do, we want to do based on time. We don't have time to, like when you have a hard drive, you don't want to have a hardware failure. For example, now your flash to your ports now, before you put that flash into your system, did you ask the question, is the method of preparing to secure your system now? Do you ask the person, is this secured? Did you scan? When did you scan it last? We don't do that. Some of us don't even have antivirus on our system. Not to talk of checking the kind of flash or anything that comes in. So how do you prepare yourself against these things? You need to have something that can take whatever comes. For example, a very good antivirus. I know that Norton is around 9,000, for example, for a single user. How many of us want to pay 9,000 for 1 year just for Norton? And even if we have it, do we update on a daily basis or on a weekly basis that when there's any problem, we can actually tackle whatever we have on even on the internet, even when you are downloading, not just inserting a flash alone in your system. When you are downloading, there are files that you download that has virus that contain malicious virus and this thing. Some of them haven't. How many of us have? I believe many of us have seen when you are trying to download or browse something and they tell you this site is not secured. Continue anyway, and most of us we just click on the continue, and then we download, we finish whatever. We take time, we browse and do everything. Even despite the warning, that means anything can happen. But sometimes when you have antivirus and whatever that is very strong, you might be safe. At least you'll be a bit secure from this danger. That's what I'm trying to say there. Hello?
All right, thank you. Yeah, I understand. I get it. Thank you.
Any other question, please? Any other question, please?
You can go ahead and evaluate them.
Okay. Thank you. Let me ask this question.
Please be specific. Call people by name, please.
Okay. All right. Thank you for this. Oh, no. Okay. Mr. Taiwo, good morning, sir. Mr. Taiwo.
Yes, good morning, sir.
Okay. Sorry, how do you determine the person that will actually give your system to take control of? Probably you want to analyze control. How do you determine who in the organization will give this access to, since it's your most secure value or data or information? How do you give it to? How do you determine who you want to give it to?
We can determine by having security, I mean internet security on our devices. so that we won't have an unauthorized use on our database. Hello.
And someone is thank you. Mr. David, can you help? Thank you, sir. I love that. Can Mr. David also say something? Is Mr. David in the class?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, can you help to that question?
Okay. You asked how do you determine who to give your system to for security and all that? Yes.
Yes.
It has to be like a trusted person and also an expert in that area when it comes to security analysis and all that. Probably someone that's in your organization is best to give. As if you are running an organization, so you should have maybe a staff that's an expert in that field to do the checks on the security instead of going outside and possibly leaking, having maybe breach of information of the organization and all that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's just basically because if you don't look for expert within, if you take it outside, you're also what exposing yourself. That's where I'm going to. You are just actually supposed to give, but again, Nigerians, we don't want to pay experts in every field. That's another thing. When you are afraid of paying expert, how can you pay just risk analyst and a risk analyst? You want to employ someone just because he's a risk analyst. Then you're going to employ an engineer or employ this thing. So you are trying to employ someone that can do many things. He's also into risk analyst and also into another thing so that you will not pay much. You need to get someone that is very good, that is an expert, that is his area of concentration. So you get someone like that, and then you give him that, you charge him with that, you saddle him with that responsibility. You are saddled with this responsibility. This is what you're supposed to do, and nothing cut short, so that when there's anything, you can hold him accountable for that. The basic information will be between you and that person, as probably the admin of the organization. It's not supposed to be part, it's not even for the executive. The information, the control of the organization is not for the executives. It's just basically the person in charge, the expert in charge, so that you can give account, you can hold somebody accountable. This next question goes to Ms. Oluwaseun. Are you in the class? On the call, please.
I'm on the call, but I've been on the road, so.
Okay. Let me take this to Mr. Damilare. Mr. Damilare. Mr. Damilare.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
So what is the question again?
Okay, in understanding risk, I'm thinking this is the question. In understanding risk, what impact will encryption play in, and encryption and authentication play in securing your assets or data? Did you get the question?
Yeah, how encryption secures access to data, right?
Yes, encryption and authentication.
Well, let me think. Well, so encryption generally minimizes data security risks, if I'm correct.
Okay, I'm waiting.
Well, this question is very technical.
Yeah. And because I'm talking to technical guys in the house, so I know what I'm saying.
Encryption is more like a conversion of data from a readable format to more of like an encoded format. So it makes it difficult for anybody external to, be able to decrypt it or, gain access to the data. Am I still on track?
Okay, sir. Yes, you are still on. I'm still with you, sir.
Yeah, that's my answer.
Okay. How about authentication, sir?
I don't know.
Eh? Okay, let me throw it to you. I have respect. I would have asked Mr. Jacob, but I respect myself. So I don't like asking authority questions. So let me go to my friend and my pal. Mr. Ogbeide, God's time, sir. This is your field, encryption and authentication. How does he promote or help data security?
I was having a feeling that you were going to call my name. Okay. For encryption, if you are encrypting something like for example, you just created a server and then you are using private key, a key pair to access the server. So there will be something like if you are encrypting something, there'll be a decryption key or like a password or something.
Okay.
So the person that is encrypting, we also have password. So whenever any third party want to access the file, the encrypted file, the third party will have to use the decryption key to gain access, like a password. So in securing your data, you will know that, okay, your password or your decryption key is, you will know who the person that has it is, the people that have access to it. So whenever there's a malicious attack, you know who to hold accountable. Then same thing for authentication. For authentication, for example, is like a this is Google Authenticator. So if you want to access, for example, your information, probably same thing for your PDF. Probably you have a PDF that you don't want the operations to access. You just want the accounting department to access it. Then you give accounting department the password to the PDF. So when you send the PDF, the accounting department is the only people that will be able to access that PDF, like your bank statement. You have to use a section of your account number to access it. That's authentication. You are the one that can authenticate access to that information. I don't know if I'm right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, all this still boils down to you still need an expert. Do you get? All we are trying to do is we still need an expert in risk, maybe a risk analyst. You still need an expert, someone that probably is a risk analyst. He can encrypt, he can decrypt, he can authenticate. He has that private information. You just need, what I'm trying to say here, all this is still boiled down that you need an expert in this field to have your secured, whether we like it or not. There are softwares now that I know that, like Backtrack 5, the Backtrack 5 lacks hash handling. Some guys use it to just scan, they just scan through your information. They just type something, some of your code, they get to your programming code, they just pick up some things, type it on the Backtrack 5, and then scan. It will scan and give them some information. Only encryption and authentication can save you. Maybe two-step authentication can save you from such guys. So there are mad guys that their duty okay, and they will not be able to do anything because it will need another thing, probably the two-step. It will send the code, an authentication, and OTP to you to access a particular file. So these are things you need in your organization to make sure that you are safe from being hacked or from threats anytime in your organization. Please don't forget, you can always do backup in your organization to have a secure organization. Thank you very much for coming to this class. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So for those that are yet to present, please, if you are sending your slide, endeavor to send your 2-paragraph summary alongside your slide for approval. And those that are yet to present within this week, your video We're still expecting your social media video. Thank you, everybody. We have come to the end of the KD for today. Bye-bye.